and welcome to Your City in Action. I'm your host, Todd Pittenger, the news director for KSAL Radio here in Salina. I'd like to thank all of the viewers from Community Access Television joining us. We've got a big show lined up, a fun show lined up. I hope it's a fun show this time.
I hope so too.
With us, special guest, Salina Police Officer Sean Moreland. Officer Moreland, thank you for joining us on the show.
You bet, thank you.
And first, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with the Salina Police Department? And then we'll delve into what we're going to talk about.
I've been with the Salina Police Department actually since December of 1999. Just came straight out of the Navy and decided that I wanted to do something that was similar-ish to the military, and I wanted to be back closer to my family, so that's why I chose Salina.
Obviously, as a police officer, you've been out on the beat on patrol. What are some of the things, some of the duties you've had as a police officer? You've been a patrol officer, right?
Yes, of course. We all start out as patrolmen, and then I have worked as a canine officer. I've been on bike patrol. I've worked with the SWAT team, and now with the School Resource Officer Program, and I worked with the detective unit as well.
All right, School Resource Officer you mentioned, that's what you're doing right now, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Your City in Action here on Community Access TV. Let's just talk a little bit about School Resource Officer. Essentially, you're a cop in the school, but it's much more than just that. You're not just there for enforcement, you're not there big brother watching them, are you?
Right, no.
Explain what you do.
No, mostly what I do is I spend my time walking around the school, one, just to do security issues and making sure that things are locked down the way they should be, so we don't have, I mean, we have 1,100 students in Central High School, and that's an awful big responsibility of the parents, I would assume, if Salina want their people and their children safe. And so I take care of that, and then I also walk through. I've got several kids that are at risk in terms of just they don't come from the best background. Sometimes they have a little bit harder time in school, and so I take a little special interest in them, just kind of making sure that they have what they need or that things are going okay. Sometimes kids come in from a long weekend and they're just, you know, a little bit out of sorts, and so I try to be there to kind of give them a sounding board and maybe help kind of even them out before we get the day started.
And you're more than just a police officer. You're not a certified teacher, but you teach a little bit too, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have, we come into different classrooms. We'll talk about drug use. We'll talk about alcohol use. We'll talk about the impairment and how it can affect you and your ability to drive a car. You know, because the kids have all different kinds of ideas about how things affect them and what's legal and what's not. And it's funny, the little different myths that they have about how they can't be followed for so many blocks, and if they are, they can't be stopped, or you know, just little things. And so we talk about that. We talk about Miranda, and we talk about law enforcement as a career, because I mean, I think ultimately our job as police officers is to try to recruit and to show people that there's a lot of positives to this job, and we want people in those ranks with us.
Again, we're talking to Salina Police Officer Sean Moreland. He's the School Resource Officer at Salina Central High School here in Salina. How many School Resource Officers are there? What schools are you at?
Okay, so we currently have 3 School Resource Officers. There's a full-time officer, it's Officer Danny Lemon in South High School, and then Officer Dora Diebel is in Lakewood Middle School and South Middle School, and she kind of shares her time between the two of them, and then I cover Central High School. And in addition to that, Officer Lemon and I cover the north and the south half of towns in terms of grade schools and the special schools. So Salina West is covered by Officer Lemon, then I will take Opportunity Now. But I will tell you that I have gone to South High School to deal with problems. I've gone to every grade school in the town. We kind of go wherever we need to be going and just try to do as much as possible. Ultimately, if we were fully manned, we would have 4 SROs, and so there'd be 1 permanently at each of the middle schools as well.
I guess the good news to report is there aren't a heck of a lot of problems you have to deal with at the schools, are there? For the most part, they run pretty smooth, right?
Oh yeah, no, we don't have a large criminal population in our schools. I mean, they're genuinely good kids, and they just need a little bit of guidance. I mean, some of them really don't have a lot of guidance, and so I think that's one of our greatest tools when we're out there, is just being good role models and just showing them that you can come to work every day, showing them that you can be responsible and still be a fun person to be around. And that's, I mean, that's one of those things that you just always, I feel like I'm always doing a balancing act, you know, trying to be, I want to be professional, but I also want to be approachable.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of leads into my next question. You kind of get to know these kids on a personal level, and I think it makes it a little easier for them to maybe come to you if something has happened to them, whether it's bullying or something, or if they've seen something, or if they know of maybe somebody who has the capability of doing something. They might feel a little more at ease in coming to you.
Oh, absolutely. There are students at the school that I've been with since they were in middle school. I started at Lakewood Middle School for my first year, and then I went to Central High School for these past 3. And so I've got a group of juniors that I've known for probably, I mean, almost a quarter of their lives. And so, I mean, we've got a really good relationship, and I feel like they trust me, and they know that I'm not going to, I'm not going to ignore what they have to say, and I'm going to listen to the things that concern them, and I'm also going to give them valid options to look at, and then if there's any police action that needs to be taken, that's exactly one of the main reasons I'm there, is to take that police action should we need to.
Well, thank goodness we've never had any real big incidents at the schools here, but we've had some threats in the past. Let's talk about how you handle threats, whether it be maybe a note left in the locker room, something scribbled on a mirror. The latest was somebody had called 911 dispatch and made some sort of a veiled threat. How do you handle threats?
Well, it depends on what the threats are,
Right.
obviously. I mean, there are things that we take. We may want to keep school going, and so we may just kind of hem up the school in terms
Right.
of what's going on outside. We may limit the amount of time kids are spending in the halls in terms of passing period, and maybe not letting them go
Right.
roaming as much as they had in the past.
Tell me, what's the difference between lockdown and heightened security? All the time I'll get a text, South's on lockdown, Central's, are they on lockdown? Well, no, maybe they're not on lockdown, but they're on heightened security.
Right.
And there's a difference, right?
There is, absolutely. Yeah, so what I was explaining to you, or what I was describing earlier, would be a description of heightened security.
Right.
And so with heightened security, we have class as normal as possible, and school as normal as
Right.
possible. We try to limit the amount of people that are going, because we have students that go from south to central and
Right.
central to south, and so we try to limit those kind of interactions just because we want people coming in one funnel point, and we don't want them coming in through multiple. And so heightened security is just we're all at a little more state of awareness, and I'm obviously in the building everywhere as much as possible, and then we're ensuring that every single person that comes in the building has a purpose to be there. A lockdown would be where we would shut down learning,
Right.
to say, for lack of a better term, and we would be.
Is that when they're not allowed to leave you close the door and you can't leave the room? Is that lockdown?
Right. That's something that we're really looking forward to, and we're evolving in terms of our responses, because we understand that there's more that could be done if there's something happening in a school other than just locking down and just trapping 1,100 people in the building.
Right.
So the school district has taken a new approach, and so we're looking at if we can get people out of the building, that's what we're going to be doing, and we're not going to be keeping them where they are helpless victims.
Unfortunately, in this day and age, I think you probably have to take all threats seriously. I would say the vast majority, probably 99.9% of them, are not legit, so to speak, because I would think that if somebody's going to do something, they're not going to tell you they're going to do it. They're just going to show up and do it, I would think. But that being said, no matter how small or how large, you probably have to take all threats seriously, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if some student says, I've got a gun in my backpack, and he's just goofing around, and you can tell he's just goofing around, and you've known this kid for 4 years, you still have to act,
Right.
and you still have to have the same repercussions as though, I mean, and not the same, but it's as though he had the gun.
Right.
And you have to act like that. If somebody says they're going to do something to the school, we have to act accordingly. Now, I mean, obviously, we try to weigh those things, and we don't want to have a knee response to every single thing. It's easy to say that if A happens, we go to B, but we're not in that kind of society. And so if A happens, we might be at D.
Right.
And A may never have happened, and we may be at D.
And I think that's the advantage to having an officer in each of the schools. I think you can gauge too. You can communicate with the guys back at the station, so to speak, and the principal. I think you've got your finger on the pulse. You can kind of tell if something is legit or not. Is that fair to say?
I would hope so. I would hope.
Yes.
I would hope 17 years of experience. I would hope that all the things that I've done in the past have kind of geared me to where I am today. So yes, I would agree with that 100%. I think that, and it's nice. I mean, it can be as simple as false alarms, fire alarms. We've had some fire alarms that have been pulled, and I can call and cancel right away. And so I can say, okay, this is fake, like you just said, you know, we can gauge, it's not a fire, we don't need a bunch of people here, and we can kind of get that going and things happening a little quicker.
I can tell you a frustration that I have when something happens. Social media can be a good thing in this day and age. It can be a pain in the neck for me in this day and age as well. I'll give you an example. There was a fight at South High School earlier this year, I don't remember, or earlier in the fall. And somehow on social media, what it was a fight, right? In social media, it gets blown up to there was a knife involved, a teacher was stabbed.
Oh, I remember that.
And then I'm getting texts from people, hey, should I go pick my kids up from school? And my response is no, our schools are safe. We have school resource officers, and they will let us know if any word needs to get put out if you need to pick up your kid from school. I'm a graduate of the Salina schools. My children graduated there. My wife teaches at a Salina school, so I would like to think I'm in touch with what's going on also. And I guess what I'm getting at here is when rumors and stuff pop up, don't believe what's on social media. You will get the word out to the district, and the district will get the word out through the media, correct?
Yes, and I mean, we are not in a position, or we aren't in the practice of keeping somebody misinformed just to save our own skin. Our job is to ensure that people are safe. And so it's funny because what he's talking about is it was a bloody nose. And I mean, there's a lot of vascularity and going on in the face, and you can lose a lot of blood really fast. And so, yeah.
So all of a sudden, a bloody nose turns into a teacher. A bloody nose on a student turns into a teacher that was stabbed, right?
Right. Yeah. And it was
totally untrue.
Out of control. It's interesting that you asked me this because the Pylon, which is the Central paper, had interviewed me recently, and this is one of the questions was with social media, and it can be very frustrating because people can edit pieces of whatever they've recorded and make it look completely different. I mean, you can take our interview today and you could chop it up and make it something completely different by simply leaving pieces out.
Right.
And whenever we record, and that's one of the great things about having the cameras that we've gone to, and actually the school resource officers are going to have cameras as well really soon. We can't edit that.
Right.
All we can do is dock it, it uploads to the cloud, and that's where it stays. We have no editing ability, and so, which is fantastic.
It is, and it's fantastic. I've watched some of it in court. It can be very boring sometimes too, but because it records everything, clearly what's happened. So I think that's good for the public, and it's good for you also.
Yes, yeah, the unblinking eye.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, we're talking to Sean Moreland, the school resource officer at Salina Central High School, one of the three school resource officers here in Salina. We have the capability of 4 because of staffing reasons or the lack thereof staff. We're down 1 right now, but you guys are doing a fine job keeping up. What's the most gratifying thing of your job?
Well, I tell you, there's so many different things.
You know, I see you at graduation, not to cut you off, I see kids hugging you after graduation. So I know that you've got a good rapport with the kids.
I try to, and I hope I do. I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back. I work really hard to ensure whenever I walk around town with the kids, with my kids, and I have students come up to me or ex-students come up to me and they talk to me, and then whenever we get done, my kids tell me that I know everybody in town. And I'm like, well, no, I don't know everybody in town. But they think it's really neat that all these different people are coming up. So I would say the most gratifying thing is that I've done this job for 17 years, and I have people coming up to me whenever I'm off duty and asking me how I'm doing, asking me what I'm going to do for Christmas. I see somebody that I thought wasn't going to graduate that's got a job and he's successful and he's got his diploma. You know, those things are incredible. I love seeing the kids come back from college.
Right.
It's awesome to see them, and then to see their eyes and their face light up when they see me, and they don't duck down in dread and they're like trying to hide. I mean, that's awesome. Whenever people are receptive to you, that's probably the best.
Conversely, the toughest thing you've had to do?
Oh.
I'm sure death notifications are the absolute toughest, but as a school resource officer, fortunately, you probably haven't had to do that recently, but the toughest thing that you do?
Well, I mean, the toughest thing, and maybe for a school resource officer, would be to go to somebody's home and see that they're not living in good conditions, and maybe pull them out of the house. And it's never a good thing to do that. I mean, we go to somebody's home and they live in conditions that people in most of society could never imagine. And these people live in like this every single day with bugs and rotting.
What happens here in Salina? I know there are
does.
students that go hungry here in Salina.
No, we have a backpack program here, and we give kids food on Friday so they can eat through the weekend. And people, I think, sometimes don't understand how many people that it really affects.
And that
so,
it happens right here at home.
Yeah, I've got kids. I mean, I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody, but
Right.
I've got kids at school that sleep on a concrete floor in a hotel room because that's where they live.
Right.
And they've lived like that for years.
So absolutely, that's got to be the toughest thing that you do. So it's gratifying, and it can be heartbreaking at times as well. So why have you kept being a school resource officer for so long?
It's funny because whenever I started, I had no desire to be a
Right.
school resource officer. The job is incredible. I mean, you couldn't possibly know what the job is like until you get into it. I mean, whenever you sign up to be a police officer, you've got kind of this the cops thing, and maybe some
Right.
Hill Street Blues, depending on your age, and
So
everything
it's not
else.
like I see on TV?
No.
No?
No. I mean, and people, they come into it for all different reasons. I mean, some people want a lot of action, and sometimes it's not a lot of action. But when you go to school, it's completely different because you are completely immersed in these people's lives for 9 months out of the
Right.
year. And then whenever you see them in the summertime, I mean, if you care, you stop and you talk to them and you ask them how they're doing. You know, you want to make sure that they're still doing good. You want to make sure that they're going to enroll the next
Right.
year. So this is one of those jobs that I never thought I would like, and it's
Right.
incredible, and I feel fortunate. And then we're kind of changing the way we're working on prosecution of
Right.
criminal cases for juveniles. And it's encouraging because we're trying to better society, and
Right.
I think to be a part of that is I'm very fortunate.
Officer Sean Moreland, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And you know what, I may have you back. I think it'd be interesting, once you stop becoming a school resource officer, when you get back out on the street, I'd like to have you back on and talk to you again.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do that.
Officer Sean Moreland, School Resource Officer for Salina Central High School, our guest today on Your City in Action here on Community Access Television. We'd like to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.